Greetings and salutations, folks. My name is Nick, and welcome back to Forza Motorsport 7, where last time things were pretty hectic. They were possibly a little too fast. Let's slow it down, then speed it back up next time. But for now, let's go off-road. And by off-road, I mean on-road, but with off-road buggies. Because we are still racing around fixed tracks, but
some racing thrills are found off the beaten path, where dirt, mud, and sand reign supreme. These off-roaders are dirty and loud, built to survive punishing races like the San Felipe 250 and the Baja 1000.
or maybe we are going off-road and it's on courses that aren't... Cocoa Pops. This seems a bit generic, like a little bit too simple. And the Monster energy drink is a little bit, like the energy drink designs, a little bit expected. Green Lantern? Alright, sure, why not? This is a little bit more interesting, a version of that same first design. Because, or should I say, I think it's interesting because it looks like a shark. And sharks are interesting. The same thing, but now with a fish, I think. A lot of energy drink ones. I gotta say, I'm not exactly too... Let's go with the Green Lantern. I don't necessarily care about the Green Lantern as a superhero. I've never read any Green Lantern comics. The only Green Lantern comic that I would have ever read would be like his involvement in the Death of Superman comic. Who was Green Lantern in that one? I think it was it Guy Gardner? Either way, we're racing now. It just happens to be in a Green Lantern themed vehicle. Let's toss on some mods. We're gonna... Yeah, just throw down all those. First turn is to the left. I did not bother to look at how many laps this race is gonna be. Two laps. Alright. Not a particularly long race, then. Although, right now, I'm noticing that the handling on this is not particularly good. There's a certain element of stiffness to this that was not present in the previous vehicle I was driving, which is highly unfortunate. Because it's like, I'm gonna have to be driving this for another... 5 races now. And unfortunately, I did not pass by that many people, which makes me wonder if I should be paying as much attention to my brake line as I am. Alright, now there's a shifting... A great shifting to the street. I think I handled that fairly well, actually. Actually, I think I've handled both of those turns fairly well. Sneaking up into 5th place. Now, can we do better than that? Alright. Kind of bullied our way into 4th. This is, I don't know, something about the handling on this car is throwing me off a little bit. Excuse me, let me go, thank you very much. With any luck, I can at the very least place in 3rd. Luckily though, this is early on, like, in the set, so it's not going to impact... Let's rewind that and try that again. It's not going to affect, my total score that badly. If I get 3rd. Or even 4th. Like, the ones that really have the biggest impact are towards the end of this set. Oh. I figured I was playing it a little bit risky. I was driving a little bit too much on the curb. Like, I'm trying to maintain a straight line while constantly accelerating. Because this car seems to want to drift, or should I not drift, skid a little bit more than I'd like. Let's try that turn again, because if I don't, I think if I don't do this particular turn better, I will guarantee get 4th. Let's give it one more shot at the very least. Yeah, just barely skirted ahead for 3rd. Now, if there were a few more laps, maybe I would have been fine. But at the moment, it looks like I've lost out of a potential 50 points. Which overall is not bad. But depending on how well I do on the subsequent tracks, it might prove, like, this particular collection might prove a little bit more problematic than I'd like. 4 laps, short race, not too many curves going on with it. Let's throw on some mods. Let's somehow bet that we're gonna be in 1st place, for some reason. Now, I suppose one thing I can do that could essentially make things easier for me in the long run is, let's say there's a specific type of car that I don't find very interesting to drive. Such as this one. I was hoping for, like, a slower car, and I got what I asked for. But I don't really like how it handles. And because of the lack of variety of the types of cars, it handles more like, the race feels more like a spec race. Which is not, it was just something that I was planning to avoid anyway. I could always maybe, like, let's say there's a specific car that I would just try out, and it turns out I don't like it. I can always back out of it and go into a different set. and then still have the points that at the very least I've accrued from that first set. Because this is actually my 4th attempt at this race, and I still have a lot of trouble getting past 3rd place, or catching up to 3rd place. Partially would be due to my own experience in the game, but also I would say I'm just not really driving with how this particular vehicle handles. Either way, maybe I shouldn't be so focused on being that gung-ho, gotta win, nothing else matters but winning, like that previous racer did in one of the sets. And just try to experience the car. Because if I just focus on it as in like this buggy has a little bit wonky handling. It's easy to skid more often than not. It doesn't drift as much as it skids. Everybody kind of has the same acceleration because everybody has kind of the same vehicle, so I don't necessarily feel like I can rely on just the machine alone. Like a spec race, I am forced to be skillful, which is not exactly a quality or trait that I can bring to this game. But I feel like in instances like this, I need to remember why I'm playing the game in the first place. And it's not just to win. It's not just to see the content and experience the end credits. There was quite a time for me in which I finished a lot of games, which was just experience the content and see the end credits. But the goal of my channel is for me to play lots of different games. I think I talk about this in the channel intro video, which I have not even bothered looking at for myself for a year or so. But there was a point in time in which my house that I was living at lost internet for like a good 2 weeks. And during that time, I could have played games that I normally haven't. But I didn't. I used that time instead to play games I already had. And you could argue that perhaps there's some manner of comfort to that. But it also kind of, I feel as though I've deprived myself of new experiences. Like, I have never actually played through the entirety of a... No? You don't get 3rd. I'm already in 3rd. 3rd is taken. You get 4th. Like, I've never played through an entire Forza Motorsport game. Would I have done so in my spare time? I did. I started playing this game actually before. But I didn't finish it. And that's essentially the idea of the channel, is that I could take the time to actually experience games that I wouldn't normally kind of, I guess the idea is it's not that I wouldn't normally play these games, but I wouldn't necessarily give them enough time because maybe I'm going to play a little bit of that game or a little bit of this game. It's kind of like if you've ever emulated like Super Nintendo games back in the day, ever downloaded a Super Nintendo emulator and like the ROM for the entire library of games, and then you end up playing like 5 minutes of every game. Like, the idea of the channel is just to... Oh, we're racing in the rain. Let's turn that off. Let's throw down more rain racing. I would be surprised if somehow I don't have that. Nope, I do. I'm just missing it. And yeah, the idea is to focus on the individual game and give them the full time of day, the full attention. But also kind of diversify my portfolio, so to speak. And if I spent all this time just focusing on the forcing myself to essentially be in first, like, it would remove the experience of actually trying to race. If I focused so much on just rewind until I get that perfect turn, ultimately it would be myself performing. Oh my gosh. Let's that would still be myself performing that turn eventually. I mean, ultimately that's what games like Hotline Miami are about. You're essentially repeating the same action over and over until you get to that one variation in which you succeed. You're rewinding to that checkpoint. Enough times until you can manage to do it. I apologize. This course feels like it is requiring a little bit more concentration. Than I feel as though my brain is necessarily capable of this particular time of day. The rain conditions, combined with the narrow roads, combined with my super slidey four-wheel buggy, do not make for ideal conditions to race. But I think that's why I think it's also important for me to just relax. Take it easy. Do my best. And, you know, I don't think my best is going to be enough. But I'm not necessarily going to improve if I rely entirely on that, on manipulating the system to get my one perfect turn. Also, I feel as though my own poor driving is the reason why I maintain. Like, early on, I feel as though I felt as though I was getting good at holding onto the lead, but terrible at attaining the lead. If there are cars in front of me, like, at this point, I'm not going to be able to catch up with second and first. Like, all they're doing is gaining distance, of which I am not going to be able to acquire before the end of this race. Doesn't matter how many laps. This goes for. But if I always rely on just that rewind feature, then I'm only going to learn how to do the best in that particular situation. There's a different skill set that's built out of the repeated practice of safe, careful turns. Now, obviously, there's a certain point in which you have to throw caution to the wind, but it creates an element of consistency that is not there if I'm basing my entire skill set on repeatedly attempting the same impossible feat until I get it right that one time. Which you could say it makes game, like, that's the important feature in games like Hotline Miami or any other game where you die in one hit. Oh, son of... Let's rewind this one. Mr. Shifty is actually probably my favorite of that style of games. But that's what they're crafted around. They create a system that is not just difficult, but almost impossible without a combination of a few elements. Like, imagine, like, you take Hotline Miami, and you had you limited your amount of lives. Suddenly, the game has become much more improbable. Let's say you take a game like Hotline Miami, and then you gave it loading time. Like us. Wow, nope, that's right into these rubber tires. Like, you gave it loading time, like significant loading time. Like, every time you die, it took, let's say, not that much, but enough to be noticeable. Let's say 10 seconds to reload the game. So you would play the game for maybe 10 seconds, load the game for 10 seconds. I imagine that would have made the experience aggravating. Instant reloads enable that game to be much, much more playable because it allows you to just continue your attempts over and over again until you somehow figure out that right path. That said, somehow I'm still in second place. So, at the very least, the race for this particular cup isn't too terrible. Are you going to cost me money? You are not going to cost me money. I will buy you for $0. The Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca? Alright, let's toss on some mods. We're gonna somehow assume we're gonna do top 3. I don't even know how. I can do 2 good passes. I can do that. Alright, straight ahead, first turn is a sharp one to the left. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to appreciate this car if I'm spending my entire time worrying about its faults. Wow. Alright, 2 steps forward, take 2 steps back. Okay. That did not... None of those things that I attempted to do worked. As we are all kind of in this same order we were when we started. I mean, I suppose that doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna have the easiest time. Driving this car. It's unwieldy. Hold on. That was a good pass. And every good pass deserves another. And another? Oh, son of a... See, this car's tires also seem to... lock together more with each other. Sheesh. 9th place and... 8th place, alright. A lap to get up to whatever number I can get up to. And I was calling myself as being in 2nd way too soon. Because I clearly have not seen... Nope, too soon of a turn. I was hoping that the off-road wouldn't really affect this vehicle as much, but unfortunately... Well, unfortunately, despite the label of off-road, it does not seem to gain that much extra traction. Also, I might have to settle for 8th place at this rate. Because the 7th place driver is a little bit farther ahead. Than I'd like. And by that, it's a little bit farther ahead than I think I'm qualified to... Let's try this turn a little bit better, simply because I think I can... Let's try this turn again, so I could probably do it a little bit better. Do I even understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Yeah, I think what is really holding me back, especially, is like this particular vehicle has a larger tendency to skid. And I'm not necessarily prepared well enough to deal with that. Alright, I guess we're dealing with 6. Alright, that knocked me down to 3rd. don't necessarily feel particularly optimistic about this set, but hopefully we can do the next one better, and if we can't, then the one after that, and then if we can't, in theory, by the time after that, we'll at least be able to walk away from this these sets of races having completed the Masters Cup. Now let's say I find myself in a situation where oh my Jesus. What is causing you to spin out so easily? I'd like a refund on my off-road vehicle. Or at the very least, whatever tires have been attached to it. Oh my. Because it is constantly spinning out. Go. Good enough. At the very least, I'm not in 11th place still. What's kind of interesting, though, is I didn't really think about it until now. But that essentially means that this game is kind of like golf and bowling. Golf and bowling are interesting sports in that if you're really good at those games, you will play less of those games. Like, if in bowling, if you play, if you get a strike for every single, what do you call it? Is it a round? Every single turn you have up. If you get a strike every single time, you will bowl a ball 12 times. If you don't get a strike every time, or any time, should I say, you will bowl 20 times, at the least. If you get a hole-in-one, you swing once, and then you're done. Son of a... Jesus. Well, you know, I think I'm going to... Like, I feel like this particular set of races is going to just make me appreciate the crazy hecticness of the fast cars even more, simply because they tend to handle so much better, even at top speeds. Like, this car barely handles at 80 miles per hour. Anyway, so yeah, like, if you get a hole-in-one, you swing once. If you do not, you end up playing more golf. If you get first place on all of your races, oh my gosh. Again. Here's the question I have. Am I going too fast? Am I turning the wheel a little bit too much? Either way, if you get first place in every Forza race and in every Forza set, your start to finish for your trip through the single player game is going to be shorter than if you do worse. You will end up playing less game than somebody who places third place in every set. The person who places third place in every set, or fifth place, as is the case in this, I'll probably end up getting fifth place and not making it onto the podium. That's going to be my guess. But if you don't do as well, that means that the only way to succeed is to play more of the game. Which, I suppose, does make sense in regards to my YouTube channel's mission statement, if you'd call it that. Like, we're not just about speeding through a game and watching it fall behind in the dust. There are points in which I feel as though like I've grown tired of a game. Like, I know with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, there was a point in which I was ready to move on. And I was just kind of like forcing myself to, alright, at the very least, fourth place? Yeah. And I was ready to move on, but then I had played that game for like over 80 hours, so I feel that makes sense. But I still tried to keep the spirits up, the hope alive, that I might one day attain fourth place driving these ATV buggies. Alright, let's change out our mods. We're not going to be placing third or better, but we might do some good passes. And we would want some improved race rewards. And let's throw that on again. Alright. Oh, is this the last race? I wasn't even paying attention. First turn is to the left. Somehow we are in second place. Somehow the drivatars for the various drivers on this court... What the hell am I talking about? On this track balanced out their success to the point in which my fourth place finish wow. Okay, now I definitely see what I'm doing wrong as I'm doing it. Let us try to emulate these other cars. If we try to minimize... Oh my... Son of a... That's okay, I'll just pass them by again. As long... Like, somehow they've found that sweet spot that enables them to minimize drifting. Or at the very least, this particular vehicle... is much more sensitive to skidding out of a turn. and my thumb on a analog stick is not quite sensitive enough at the touch to take advantage of that. Because unfortunately, we're in 8th place, and it does not seem like we're going to be gaining much ground on the 7th place driver. Which is disappointing. I was hoping I would do better in this particular set. But it just goes to show that I do still have a long ways to go. Now, the concern I have is that this game will eventually say, hey, maybe you should turn down the difficulty. I've already turned up the difficulty a couple notches, which may have been to my own kryptonite. By constantly attempting to make the game more difficult for myself, I have, in result, made the game more difficult for myself. Who would have thought? And thus, by making the game harder, I've also presented situations that would mean that I would not necessarily win. If that happens, i.e., if we find ourselves in a situation in which the game is saying, hey, maybe you should turn down the difficulty a bit, I'm not going to take the first offer. I'm going to take the second offer. Because even if we do turn down the difficulty a bit, it's not the same as the, son of a... Yeah, I'm not even bothering to rewind to save, to try to get 7th place. I'm pretty sure at this point there's no chance for me to even dream of that. But yeah, lowering the difficulty is not the same as like when you do bad at Mario and you get like a special like golden feather. Because one, it doesn't give you like super powered abilities to win, and two, the difficulty will still be above normal. And yep, did not make it onto the podium. Ended up in 6th place. Hopefully next time we'll do better. In the meantime, got any suggestions for something to play next? Leave them down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have yourselves a good night.